Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content. Subscribe and turn on notifications. The recording begins here. The voice is calm, measured. It is the voice of a man who believes he is relating a simple, tragic history. It began, as these things so often do, with the illusion of perfection. David remembers the drive up to Blackwood Ridge. He remembers the way the autumn sunlight cut through the tall pines, striping the road in gold and shadow. In the passenger seat was Chloe. She was scrolling through a playlist, her profile framed by the window. Chloe, 32. They had been married for 10 years. A clean, solid decade that David had always considered the central pillar of his life. He was a project manager. He built his life on foundations, on predictable outcomes. Chloe was his most successful project. Or so he thought. In the back seat were Mark and Sophie. Mark, a high school history teacher, was quiet, observant, a steady presence. His wife, Sophie, was the opposite. A sales executive whose energy could fill any room she entered. For better, or for worse. They were their closest friends. The kind of couple you measure your own happiness against. The four of them, heading for a weekend escape, felt like a picture from a magazine. The cabin was even better than the photos. Rustic but modern. A great stone fireplace, and a wall of windows that looked out over a valley of fiery orange and yellow trees. As they unloaded the car, the laughter felt genuine. David watched Chloe in the kitchen. She moved with a grace that still, after all this time, caught him off guard. But the transcript must be accurate. And accuracy demands the inclusion of the small things. The little splinters of doubt that he had been ignoring for months. He recounts them now with the cold clarity of hindsight. Chloe had recently become the lead curator at a downtown art gallery. A big promotion. He was proud of her. But it came with a new life attached. Late-night gallery openings. Dinners with artists he'd never met. Her phone, once a casual object, had become an extension of her hand. She would smile at a text, and when he'd ask what was funny, she'd just shake her head. Oh, just work stuff. You'd be bored. He had told himself it was nothing. The natural evolution of a long-term marriage. He wasn't the kind of husband who needed to be insecure. Their foundation was solid. This trip, he thought, would prove it. That first night was flawless. Chloe cooked. They drank too much red wine. Gathered around the fireplace. David remembers looking at her across the flickering firelight. Her face flushed, her eyes bright. He felt a surge of possessive pride. She is mine, he thought. And in this moment, everything is exactly as it should be. He reached for her hand. And she laced her fingers through his. It was enough. It silenced the quiet, humming anxiety in the back of his mind. Later, as they lay in the crisp sheets of the master bedroom, he felt a profound sense of peace. The anxieties about her new life, her phone, they all seemed ridiculous here. He had been overthinking. Everything was fine. Better than fine. It was perfect. The stillness was absolute. He didn't realize it was the stillness of a held breath. Right before the breaking point. The second night, he explains, had a different energy. A comfortable, almost lazy intimacy. The wine flowed even more freely. David was on the sofa. Chloe's legs were draped over his. Her head resting on his shoulder. He was tracing patterns on her arm, feeling utterly content. It was in that exact moment of peace that Sophie leaned forward from her armchair. The firelight caught the mischief in her eyes, a look that David's account now describes as less playful and more predatory. She swirled the wine in her glass. "I have a crazy idea," she said. Her voice a low purr. "Just for fun. What if we swapped partners for the night?" The transcript notes a pause here. David's breathing is audible on the recording. The world stopped turning. The crackle of the logs in the fireplace suddenly sounded like gunshots. The cozy warmth of the room evaporated. David's mind went completely blank. He felt Chloe's body tense against his. But he couldn't bring himself to look at her. His eyes darted to Mark. Mark was staring into his wine glass. His face unreadable. In David's memory, this wasn't shock. It was the quiet shame of a co-conspirator. David tried to laugh. The sound was a dry, choked cough. That's a good one, Sophie, he managed to say. He was trying to rewind the last 10 seconds, to pretend the words were never spoken. But his forced laugh was met with silence. A thick, heavy silence. Sophie's smile didn't waver. She was waiting. And then, it happened. The moment that shattered everything. Next to him. Chloe shifted. She let out a light, airy laugh. A sound so alien, so horrifying in that moment. With an enthusiasm he had never heard before, she said. Wow. What a fun idea. Let's do it. It wasn't the words themselves. It was the delivery. It wasn't playing along with a joke. It was the sound of a door being unlocked. The sound of a desire, long hidden, finally given a voice. His heart didn't just sink. It felt like it had been surgically removed from his chest. He finally turned to look at her, desperately searching for a hint of sarcasm. But what he saw gutted him. Her eyes weren't joking. They were shining with a bright, terrifying curiosity. A look of genuine excitement. Mark finally stirred. I don't know, Soph, he mumbled. That doesn't seem like a good idea. But Sophie waved his concern away. Oh, relax, Mark. It's just one night. No strings, a little adventure. An adventure. David looked from his wife's eager face, to Mark's averted gaze, and a new, sickening narrative began to write itself in his mind. This wasn't a spontaneous idea. This was a test. A trial balloon. And his wife, the woman he had built his life with, had just shown her true colors. The cabin, his sanctuary, had just become a cage, with 4 liars inside. He stood up. Abruptly. I need some air, he mumbled, and walked stiffly toward the bedroom hallway. The only sound was the frantic pounding of his own blood in his ears. He closed the bedroom door behind him. The click of the latch sounded final. Like a cell door locking. The room felt suffocating, its wooden walls closing in on him. This is the part of the testimony where David's voice becomes lower. More intense. He is no longer just recounting events. He is presenting his thesis. His mind, he explains, began to work with a terrible, frantic logic. It was an investigation. The late nights at the gallery. The work friends. The constant texting. Her new gym, the same one Mark went to. He remembered a few weeks ago. She'd come home late, smelling faintly of a man's cologne. She'd laughed it off. He had believed her. What a fool he had been. He sat on the edge of the bed. His head in his hands. It wasn't a joke. It was a plan. A cruel, coordinated plan. Sophie had suggested it, but the idea had clearly been discussed before. Between Chloe and Mark. Mark's silence wasn't shock. It was the calculated quiet of a man waiting to see if their scheme would work. The bedroom door opened slowly. It was Chloe. David? She said softly. Are you okay? He didn't answer. She closed the door. Came further into the room. Look, I'm sorry, she began. I didn't mean anything by it. It was a stupid joke. He finally looked up at her. In his memory, her expression wasn't one of concern. It was one of practiced innocence. The performance of a liar. A joke? He repeated, his voice dangerously low. Your eyes were lit up, Chloe. I saw you. You looked like a kid on Christmas morning. That's not true, she said, taking a step closer. You're twisting it. Fun? He stood up, the word exploding out of him. He was furious. The white-hot rage of a man who realizes his entire reality has been a carefully constructed lie. This isn't about fun. This is about them. About you, and him. Tell me the truth. And from the teen. She looked genuinely confused. Him? Who are you talking about? Don't play dumb with me, he snarled. She flinched. Mark. How long has it been going on? Those late nights, were you with him? That new gym? Was that just a coincidence too? Chloe stared at him, her mouth slightly open. You can't be serious, she whispered. You think I'm having an affair with Mark? I think your reaction told me everything I need to know, he said, his voice cold. Final. You didn't hesitate. Not for a second. Her eyes filled with tears, but he felt nothing. To him, they were crocodile tears. She tried to speak, to explain. But he held up a hand. Just save it, he said, turning his back on her. I don't want to hear any more lies tonight. He walked out of the bedroom. He went out onto the deck, into the freezing night air. The marriage, he knew with absolute certainty, was over. He just had to find the proof. The next morning was a masterclass in tension. The air in the cabin felt so thick, it was hard to breathe. David had slept for maybe an hour on the living room sofa. Chloe emerged first, her eyes puffy and red. Sophie was unnaturally cheerful, her brightness a harsh, grating noise. Mark looked haggard. He avoided eye contact with everyone. To David, this wasn't awkwardness. It was pure, unadulterated guilt. Throughout the strained breakfast, David became a silent observer, a detective gathering data. The way Chloe passed the sugar to Mark. A quick, fleeting glance. Every small interaction was another piece of the puzzle. The drive home was 4 hours of near-complete silence. He watched them in the rearview mirror. He was convinced they had developed a silent language. When they were finally inside their own house, the familiarity felt like a violation. A stage set for a life that was a lie. Chloe went upstairs for a shower. This was his chance. His heart hammered against his ribs as he walked to her purse. Her phone was in the side pocket. He took it. He knew her passcode. The anniversary of their first date. An irony so bitter, it almost made him laugh. He opened her messages. First, with Mark. Mostly innocuous. Disappointing. Then, with Sophie. And there it was. The jackpot. The conversation from that morning was at the top. Sophie, last night was wild. We have to do that again sometime soon. The wink emoji. A confession. Chloe. Tell me about it. David is still reeling. I've never seen him like that. David's blood ran cold. She wasn't remorseful. She was mocking him. Sophie, men. They're so dramatic. Mark is barely speaking to me. Give it a day. He'll get over it. Get over it. As if his entire world hadn't just been detonated. He scrolled further. His hands shaking with rage. An exchange from before the trip. Chloe, can't wait for this weekend. I seriously need a break from everything. Sophie. You and me both. A change of scenery is exactly what you need. And maybe a change of something else, lol. Chloe, haha, you are terrible. There it was. Planned all along. A change of something else. He took screenshots of everything. He had his evidence. A strange, cold calm washed over him. The anxiety, the uncertainty. It was all gone. He wasn't paranoid. He wasn't crazy. He was a man who had been betrayed. And now, he had the proof. He sat in the quiet office. Waiting. The trial was about to begin. When Chloe came downstairs, she found him waiting. He was sitting in his armchair. Her phone was on the coffee table. We need to talk, he said. His voice devoid of emotion. She saw her phone. Her face tightened. You went through my phone. I did, he replied. And I found what I was looking for. He didn't need to show her. In his narrative, her pallor was an admission of guilt. Her trembling hands were a sign of a liar caught in the act. David, you're taking all of that out of context, she began. Sophie always talks like that. That winking emoji doesn't mean anything. Doesn't it? He shot back. And what about you, gossiping about me, mocking my reaction with the very person who caused it? I wasn't mocking you. I was confiding in my best friend because my husband was accusing me of something insane. Her voice rose, and he saw it as desperation. And the conversation before the trip? He pressed on, relentless. A change of something else? What else could that possibly mean, Chloe? Explain it to me. It was a joke, she cried, tears now streaming down her face. She was probably talking about changing our wine preference. He let out a short, brutal laugh. Wine, that's your explanation? It's pathetic. To him, her every defense was just another layer of deceit. Her tears were not from hurt, but from the frustration of being caught. He felt a strange, detached sense of power. I see it all now, he said. This was an audition. And you were more than ready for the part. That is the most hurtful thing you have ever said to me, she whispered. Love? He spat the word out. You don't know the first thing about it. You know about desire, excitement. Whatever it is you think Mark can give you. But you don't know about loyalty, Or respect. There is nothing going on between me and Mark, she said, her voice a dead monotone. And the fact that you could believe that after 10 years, I don't even know who you are right now. I'm the fool who finally woke up, he said. I think you should probably leave. What? I want you to leave, he repeated, his voice flat. Pack a bag. Go to your sister's house. Or Sophie's. I'm sure she'd love to have you. I can't look at you right now. She didn't move for a long moment. Then, without another word, she turned and walked back up the stairs. He stood in the living room, listening to the sounds of her packing. He didn't feel sadness. He didn't feel anger anymore. He just felt empty. Vindicated. But empty. He had uncovered the truth. He had won. He didn't understand why it felt exactly like losing everything. The recording concludes with this final entry. The subject, David, is speaking weeks after the events. His voice is steady. Almost detached. This is the account he gives of the aftermath. Chloe left that day, and never came back. Divorce papers were filed. He signed them without reading them. What was there to read? The story was already over. He recounts that he received one text message from Mark. It said, "David, we need to talk. You have this all wrong." David deleted it without replying. He blocked Mark's number. And Sophie's too. Their friendship, like his marriage, was just collateral damage. He now lives alone in the house they bought together. He tells the recorder that some nights, the silence is deafening, but he prefers it to the sound of lies. He describes his current state, not as loneliness, but as a kind of cleansing. A necessary amputation. He is certain he did the right thing. He had proof, after all. The messages were clear. A person would have to be blind not to see the truth. He built his life on solid foundations, and when he discovered that his foundation was riddled with cracks, he did the only logical thing. He tore the whole structure down. He sees himself as a victim, yes, but also as a survivor. A man who had the courage to face a terrible truth and act on it. The transcript ends there. The voice on the recording is filled with the unwavering conviction of a man who has pieced together a narrative that makes sense of his own pain. He has told his story, where every detail aligns perfectly to prove his case. There is only one thing the transcript cannot capture. It is the profound, echoing silence between his words. It is the space where Chloe's context, Mark's explanation, and Sophie's true intentions might have existed. It is the space where another truth, a truth about insecurity, about misinterpretation, about a man so terrified of being betrayed, that he manufactured his own evidence, might be screaming, forever unheard. The recording stops. But the real story, the one that no one will ever hear, continues in that silence. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next.